Hello students. So today the lecture will be in continuation with hypertensive disorders in pregnancy. Last class we read about preeclampsia and today we are going to deal with eclampsia. So what is eclampsia? When preeclampsia complicated with generalized tonic-clonic convulsion and or coma, it is called eclampsia. Preeclampsia, as you all know, it is a multisystemic disorder of unknown etiology characterized by development of hypertension up to 140 by 90 millimeter of mercury or more with proteinuria after 28th week of gestation in previously normotensive and non-proteinuric women. And eclampsia is a Greek word. It is derived from a Greek word meaning like a flash of lightning. It may occur quite abruptly without any warning manifestation, or in majority, over 80%, the disease is preceded by the features of severe preeclampsia. The hospital incidence in India ranges from 1 in 500 to 1 in 30, and it is more common in primigravida, 5 times more common in multiple pregnancy, that is twins, and occurs between 36th week to term in more than 50%. Now pathophysiology. As you all know, since eclampsia is a severe form of preeclampsia, the histopathological and biochemical changes are similar. As I told you earlier, to maintain the balance in normal, there is increased vasodilatation, decreased platelet aggregation, and uteroplacental blood flow is increased. Opposite to that, in preeclampsia or eclampsia, there is imbalance of vasodilatation and vasospasm. There is increased vasospasm because of thromboxane A2 production and oxidative stress like lipid peroxidases, ROS, and superoxide radicals. These cytokines like tumor necrosis factor alpha, interleukin 6, increased production of angiotensin 2, then vascular responsiveness to pressure agents is also increased, endothelin secretion is increased. These all lead to endothelial dysfunction and vasoconstriction. In vasospasm, increased vasoconstriction leads to hypertension. It leads to decreased organ perfusion in uteroplacental area, leading to IUGR. For kidneys, oliguria. Liver में there will be ischemia and HELLP syndrome finally, and in brain it leads to seizures. Increased endothelial dysfunctions cause capillary leak and finally leading to edema and proteinuria. Then there is activation of coagulation system leading to thrombocytopenia and hemoconcentration. Now causes of convulsion in eclampsia. The cause of cerebral irritation leading to convulsion is not clear. The irritation may be provoked by anoxia leading to spasm of the cerebral vessels, increased cerebral vascular resistance, fall in cerebral oxygen consumption, and leading to anoxia. Then cerebral edema may contribute to irritation. Cerebral dysrhythmia increases following anoxia or edema, and there is excessive release of excitatory neurotransmitters like glutamate. Then onset of fits. Fits occur more commonly in the third trimester. On rare occasions, convulsions may occur in early pregnancy, as in hydatidine form mole. 50% cases it is antepartum, that is fits occur before the onset of labor. Moreover, labor starts soon after, and at times it is impossible to differentiate it from intrapartum ones. In 30% cases, there is intrapartum convulsion, that is fits occur for the first time during labor, and in 20% postpartum fits occur for the first time in puerperium, usually within 48 hours of delivery. Fits occurring beyond 7 days of delivery reasonably rules out eclampsia. Then intercurrent or antenatal, when the patient becomes conscious after recovery from convulsions and the pregnancy continues beyond 48 hours. The time limit is arbitrary, as a period of 7 to 10 days has also been mentioned. Then clinical features of eclampsia. Except on rare occasion, an eclamptic patient always shows previous manifestation of acute fulminant preeclampsia called premonitory symptoms. As we discussed earlier, it is severe headache, disturbed sleep, epigastric pain, decreased urinary output, and there are eye symptoms like blurring of vision, dimness of vision, even blindness, which recovers after delivery. Slowly it comes back to normal. There is redness of the conjunctiva. So now about eclamptic fits. The fits are epileptic form and consists of 4 stages. First is premonitory stage, where the patient becomes unconscious. There is twitching of the muscles of the face, tongue and limbs. Eyeballs roll or are turned to one side and become fixed. This stage lasts for about 30 seconds. Then tonic stage, the whole body goes into a tonic spasm. The trunk opisthotonous, limbs are flexed and hands clenched. Respiration ceases and the tongue protrudes between the teeth. Cyanosis appears, eyeballs become fixed. This stage lasts for about 30 seconds. Then comes clonic stage, where all the voluntary muscles undergo alternate contraction and relaxation. The twitchings start in the face, then involve one side of the extremities, and ultimately the whole body is involved in the convulsion. Biting of the tongue occurs. Breathing is stertorous and blood-stained frothy secretions fill the mouth. Cyanosis gradually disappear. This stage lasts for 1 to 4 minutes. And lastly, the stage of coma. Following the fit, the patient passes on to the stage of coma. It may last for a brief period, or in others, deep coma persists till another convulsion. On occasion, the patient appears to be in a confused state following the fit and fails to remember the happenings. Rarely the coma occurs without prior convulsion. The fits are usually multiple, recurring at varying interval. When it occurs in quick succession, it is called status eclampticus. There are different types of differential diagnosis, or differential diagnosis are there. These are epilepsy, hysteria, encephalitis, meningitis, puerperal cerebral thrombosis, poisoning, cerebral malaria in tropical countries, and intracranial tumors. In doubtful cases, it is desirable to place the patient in the obstetric unit for observation until the final diagnosis is made. Now, organ dysfunction in preeclampsia and eclampsia. So, regarding different system, in cardiovascular system, there is generalized vasospasm, increased peripheral vascular resistance, decreased CVP, and decreased pulmonary wedge pressure. In hematological, there is decreased plasma volume, hemoconcentration, coagulation disorders, and increased blood viscosity. In renal, there is decreased GFR, decreased renal plasma flow, and increased serum uric acid. In central nervous system, cerebral edema and cerebral hemorrhage. Posterior, like parietal and occipital lobe, reversible encephalopathy syndrome, and basal ganglia, brainstem lesions are rare. Then in hepatic, there is liver cell damage, periportal necrosis, subcapsular hematoma. Now, maternal complications or complications of eclampsia. First, maternal complications. These are as follows: injuries, tongue bite, and injuries due to fall from bed sore. Then pulmonary complications: edema due to leaky blood capillaries, pneumonia due to aspiration, hypostatic or infective adult respiratory syndromes, and embolism. Hyperpyrexia is there. Cardiac में there is acute left ventricular failure, then renal failure, hepatic में necrosis and subcapsular hematoma, then cerebral hemorrhage in cerebrum or brain. There can be edema, then diminished vision due to retinal detachment or occipital lobe ischemia. Then hematological, there will be thrombocytopenia and disseminated intravascular coagulation. Then comes postpartum stage, where there is shock, sepsis, and psychosis. Fetal complications, there can be prematurity, IUGR, and fetal death. Now, prognosis, maternal prognosis. Immediate. Once the convulsion occurs, the prognosis becomes uncertain. Prognosis depends on so many factors, and the ominous features are long interval between the onset of it and commencement of treatment, that is late referral, then antepartum eclampsia, especially with long delivery interval, number of fits more than 10, coma in between fits, temperature over 102 degree Fahrenheit with pulse rate above 120 per minute, blood pressure over 200 millimeter of mercury systolic, oliguria to less than 400 ml in 24 hours with proteinuria of more than 5 grams per 24 hours, and no response to treatment, and jaundice. Mortality, maternal mortality in eclampsia is very high in India. It varies from 2 to 30%. However, if treated early and adequately, the mortality should be ever less than 2%. Mortality is much more in rural based hospitals than in urban counterparts. Then remote complications. Recurrence of eclampsia in subsequent pregnancies is uncommon, although chances of preeclampsia is about 30%. If the patient recovers from acute illness, she is likely to recover rapidly within 2 to 3 weeks. And then fetal complications. The perinatal mortality is very high to the extent of about 30 to 50%. The causes are prematurity, spontaneous or induced, then intrauterine asphyxia due to placental insufficiency arising out of infarction, retroplacental hemorrhage, and spasm of uteroplacental vasculature. Then effects of the drug used to control convulsions and trauma during operative delivery. Prediction and prevention. In majority of cases, eclampsia is preceded by severe preeclampsia. Thus, the prevention of eclampsia rests on early detection and effective institutional treatment with judicious termination of pregnancy during preeclampsia. Adequate sedation, antihypertensive therapy, and prophylactic anticonvulsant therapy soon after delivery of the baby in preeclampsia, and meticulous observation for 24 to 48 hours are definite steps to prevent postpartum eclampsia. Now comes investigation. In urine, we have to see proteinuria, then ophthalmoscopic examination to see retinal edema, constriction of the arterioles, alteration of normal ratio of vein and arteriole, and hemorrhage. Blood sample, blood values mean there will be increased serum uric acid level, blood urea level remains normal or slightly raised, serum creatinine level may be more than 1 milligram per deciliter, there may be thrombocytopenia and abnormal coagulation profile, and hepatic enzyme levels may be increased. The principles of management. Now comes management. So, principles of management. These are resuscitation means maintain airway, breathing and circulation. Then oxygen administration up to 8 to 10 liter per minute. Then arrest convulsions, ventilatory support if needed, prevention of injuries, then hemodynamic stabilization like control of blood pressure, then organize investigations as I described earlier, then delivery by 6 to 8 hours, and postpartum care is needed. In if at all any intensive care is needed, it is to be done, and prevention of complications. First aid treatment should be outside the hospital. The patient either at home or in the peripheral health center should be shifted urgently to the tertiary referral hospital. There is no place of continuing the treatment in such places. So, general management, where there is medical and nursing management are coming. The patient should be placed in a railed cot. So, first supportive care. So, the patient should be placed in a railed cot in an isolated room to prevent serious maternal injury from fall. To prevent aspiration, then to maintain airway and to ensure oxygenation. Detailed history is to be taken from the relatives relevant to the diagnosis of eclampsia, duration of pregnancy, number of feeds, and nature of medication already administered. Only when the patient is stabilized, a thorough but quick general abdominal and vaginal examinations are made. If the patient is unconscious, a self-retaining catheter is introduced, urine is tested for protein, the continuous drainage facilities show measurement of urinary output, periodic urine analysis, and prevention of swelling of bed due to incontinence, which is likely to occur during feeds. Half hourly pulse, blood pressure, respiration rate to be recorded, hourly urine output is to be noted. If undelivered, the uterus to be palpated at regular intervals to detect the progress of labor, and fetal heart rate to be monitored. Immediately after a convulsion, fetal bradycardia is common, probably due to maternal acidosis and hypoxia induced by the feeds. So we have to check the fetal heart rate as well. Then fluid balance. Crystalloid solution, Ringer solution is started as a first choice. Normally it should not exceed 2 liters in 24 hours. Then comes antibiotics. To prevent infection, broad spectrum antibiotics are given. Now specific management. Anticonvulsant and sedative regime. The aim is to control the fits and to prevent its recurrence. In areas where eclampsia is frequently encountered, it is obvious that the obstetric care is inadequate. In such circumstances, any complicated regime is unlikely to give good result. So magnesium sulfate is the drug of choice. What is the mechanism of action? It reduces motor end plate sensitivity to acetylcholine, and so thereby reduces neuromuscular irritability. Magnesium blocks neuronal calcium influx also. It induces cerebral vasodilatation, dilates uterine arteries, increases production of endothelial prostacyclins, and inhibits platelet activation. It has no detrimental effect on the neonate within therapeutic level. It has got excellent result with maternal mortality up to 0.4%. Regimes of magnesium sulfate for the management of severe preeclampsia and eclampsia. Intramuscular or Pritchard regime, where loading dose is given 4 milligram IV, 4 milligram of 20%, which is dissolved in 12 cc distilled water, then given slowly IV over 10 to 20 minutes, and followed by that 5 grams deep IM in each buttocks, means total of 10 grams deep IM for eclampsia. And for preeclampsia, it is severe preeclampsia. For prevention of eclampsia, it is 3 grams IM in each buttock. Then comes maintenance dose, which is for eclampsia it is 5 grams IM 4 hourly in alternate buttocks, and in severe preeclampsia for prevention of eclampsia it is 2.5 grams IM in alternate buttocks 4 hourly up to 24 hours from the last convulsion or delivery, whichever comes later. So magnesium sulfate can be given only if the knee jerks are present, urinary output exceeds 30 ml per hour, and the respiration rate is more than 12 per minute. For recurrence of fits, further 2 gram IV bolus is given over 5 minutes in the above regime. Then therapeutic level of serum magnesium. Therapeutic level of serum magnesium is 4 to 7 milliequivalent per liter, and magnesium sulfate is continued for 24 hours after the last seizure. Then other regimes are Lytyl cocktail regime using chlorpromazine, promethazine and pethidine, but these are not used nowadays. Then comes diazepam and phenytoin and all. Now antihypertensives and diuretics. In spite of anticonvulsant and sedative regime, if the blood pressure remains more than 160 by 110 mm of mercury, antihypertensive drugs should be administered. Drugs commonly used are hydralazine, then labetalol, calcium channel blockers, and or nitroglycerin. Presence of pulmonary edema requires diuretics. In such cases, the potent one like furosemide should be administered in doses of 20 to 40 milligram intravenously and to be repeated at intervals. Management during fits. In the premonitory stage, a mouth gag is placed in between the teeth to prevent tongue bite and should be removed after the clonic phase is over. The air passage is to be cleared of the mucus with a mucus sucker. The patient's head is to be turned to one side and the pillow is taken off. Raising the foot end of the bed facilitates postural drainage of the upper respiratory tract and oxygen is given until cyanosis disappears. Then in status eclampticus, thiopentone sodium 0.5 gram dissolved in 20 milliliter of 5% dextrose is given intravenously very slowly. Treatment of complications में prophylactic use of antibiotics, then pulmonary edema के cases में furosemide, then for heart failure oxygen inhalation, parenteral Lasix and digitalis. For anuria, urine output returns to normal, it usually following termination of pregnancy. For hyperpyrexia, cold sponging and antipyretics. For psychosis, chlorpromazine or trifluperagine is quite effective. Intensive care monitoring is done. Now comes obstetric management. Obstetric management is with anticonvulsants, antihypertensives and or diuretics. Now, if the patient is not in labor or if the patient goes in labor, so first if in labor, if the patient is in labor, we have to assess the cervix and then we have to do ARM, and to cut short second stage of labor we use forceps or vacuum, and if there is any OBS indication we have to go for cesarean section. Now if the patient is not in labor and first fits are controlled and fits are not controlled, then if the fits are controlled we have to assess the baby. If the baby is mature, we take the decision of termination. Then we do Bishop scoring. If pre-induction cervical scoring is good, we do ARM and oxytocin, but if it is not favorable, we ripen the cervix by PGE2 gel and then ARM and oxytocin. If any OBS indication is there, we have to do cesarean section. Now if the baby is premature, termination, rarely continuation of pregnancy under strict supervision for few days in hospital may be considered, but usually termination is done. Then if the fetus is dead, we have to wait for spontaneous expulsion, because all these pathologies are now at arrest. So usually the parameters are coming to normal, so we have to wait for spontaneous expulsion. If the fits are not controlled, for we maximum we can wait for 6 to 8 hours, and then we have to go for termination. So to assess the again induction cervical scoring, if it is favorable, induction, ARM and oxytocin. If it is not favorable, we have to go for cesarean section. Follow up and prognosis. Patient should be followed up in the postnatal clinic by 6 weeks time. Persistence of hypertension, proteinuria and abnormal blood biochemistry necessitates further investigation and consultation with a physician. Further pregnancy should be deferred till they are controlled. So thank you. This is all about eclampsia.